Hey, I'm Michael Dorinda.
And I am Jake Bennett.
And welcome to episode 159 of the North Meet South Web podcast.
Intro music, cue the intro music. Hey everybody, how's it going?
There it is. What are you drinking over there? What's this?
Oh boy, I don't even, I literally, my wife knows I'm not drinking soda this year, so she just buys random assortments of like bubbly drinks. I don't even know what they are.
Right.
I will go up and grab something. This one is Maison Perrier, France, Forever Strawberry, sparkling water. Zero calories.
Where are you? So where are you drawing the line on like what is and isn't soda? Because like you're drinking bubbly water, which like yes, it's mineral water, but
yeah. So let me talk about like my goals and maybe my reasoning for even starting this. So what it was is, I don't take lunch with me most days because on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I work like 5 minutes from home. And so I just come home for lunch, no big deal. But on Tuesday, Thursday, I'm not disciplined enough to take a lunch with me, and I'm 15 minutes from work, and I don't want to come home for lunch and then drive right back. So I just eat somewhere around there. Well, for a while, it was this little gas station called Casey's, which actually has really good pizza. But I would inevitably end up getting like they had a deal for like a pizza and a soda.
Yeah.
And so twice a week, I was getting like a soda, like a 32 ounce or something like that.
Yeah, like an
ridiculous.
American soda. Yeah.
Like an American, correct. Not like a little baby
Adam
thing.
Wathan complained about that when he was in Australia way back in He's like, what is this large? Like, this is barely a small American soda.
So like a freaking soda, right? And I'm like, at some point I was like, this probably isn't a great thing for me. And so at the new year, I was like, I'm not going to drink soda anymore. And so I will say I have definitely I have drank less sugary drinks than I had previously. However, that does not mean that I don't sometimes like substitute things that might even sometimes be worse. Like, drink lemonade. Lemonade has actually got more sugar than soda does.
Oh yeah.
Like it's not good for you. And so I'm trying to not drink any of that either now. And sort of so I think really what it's helped me to do is just to be a little bit more intentional with my choices for what I'm drinking. And I know that soda isn't an option, so it's just not off. That's completely off the table, and so it forces me to be a little bit more creative. I'll drink water a lot more now. Yeah. I'll drink these, but these have 0 calories, 0 sweeteners. Like it's something to sip on. It's just something flavored, But So it's just trying to try something a little bit different, and I think it's working for the most part. It's allowed me to be successful in my quest of not actually drinking soda. And there've been a couple times where I'm like, oh, it's not a big deal. I'll just cheat, and then I'm like, no. I'm not going to do it. And so I don't. So like, for example, last week when we were at the theme park, they had like unlimited soda as much as you want for like, I didn't drink any. And so like, that was like, I would have, for sure I would have. Yeah. But yeah, I didn't drink any. So yeah, it's going okay.
I'm all about the, here we go, Pepsi Max or the
Pepsi Max.
Coke No Sugar, Coke Zero. Like
Coke Zero, that's good stuff, man. They've cracked the code. It used to be crap, but Coke Zero is so good. It's
funny because every now, like when my mum, my folks come around for dinner on Friday night, we have McDonald's with the kids, and
Macca's.
My mum, Macca's. My mum is still like full strength Coke. She won't drink Coke No Sugar, and so every now and then they don't pop. They got the little tabs on the top of the cup that tells you, is it soda, is it diet,
is
or
it
whatever.
Full strength? Yeah.
Right. So every now and then they don't do that, and so you've got to sip them all. And we have been on more than one occasion foiled. We're like, here you go, and no, wrong one. That was not the no sugar one. So one night a few weeks ago, I mixed it up, and so I gave Mum the Coke No Sugar, and I gave Ree the full strength.
Okay.
Mum didn't notice. Like for someone who's like, I hate the taste of it. I
fair.
wouldn't
That's
drink
good.
it. Didn't recognize. Ree straight away was
cool.
like,
yeah,
they're really strong on the syrup this time. But no, she got the full strength. And I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, Mum didn't notice, so we'll just leave that. But
so so you're like, hey Mom, next time why don't you get the no sugar one? See if you like it.
Yeah. If she knows, it's the kind of thing that like if you know, then they've got it so close, and it like I know in that context of the like post mix stuff at McDonald's, like they've got, it's easy enough to mix them up, but I think they've got it so close now, and I haven't had full strength Coke for years and years now, for about 4 years, 5 years,
Okay,
But
yeah.
yeah, I'll do the Pepsi Max. I'll do the Coke No Sugar. I'll do Mountain Dew. If I can find, it's hard to find the no sugar Mountain Dew here, but they've got like a major melon one, which is pretty good.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and
So maybe that's what I'll do. Like if I
yeah,
sort of come back onto the soda thing at some point, maybe I'll just do some of those other ones where it's like a little
yeah,
bit less of the bad stuff for you, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah. That's a
My
good
dentist is
compromise.
always like, "Oh, this is still bad for you." I'm like, "Yeah, but what are you gonna do?"
Right, exactly. Yeah.
I
I
still
got to
drink
live my
like
life.
I still drink 2 or 3 liters of water a day. So, and I always try and like wash down the soft drink.
Dang,
soda
that's a
with
lot of
3.
water. 2 or 3 liters.
Yeah.
Dang. That's a
Like
ton.
I've got this 500 ml bottle, and I will fill it up. I'll sit down at my desk, and before I know it, it's empty. And I'm like, I'm sure I just filled that up. So it's pretty
When you
easy
make
for
it
me to get through.
yeah. Yeah, when it's available, it's amazing how much water you will drink.
Yeah.
You know?
So we've got like filtered water. I drink 500 ml all the time. I'm back in the gym now as well. So protein shakes and things like that to make up the difference. So it's gone all right.
Nice. Trying to get amped up for Laracon AU, speaking of.
Laracon AU.
So
yes.
you gotta tell me what's up with the mask thing. What I don't get it. So tell me
That's
what's
okay.
happening here. Is it supposed to be
There's
not
nothing
get
to
it?
say.
Okay.
It is. So last year the Laravel team had they launched Laravel Pulse at Laracon AU, and so we had the beating heart emoji. Just like this is, I knew last year. I knew probably about a month or two before Laracon AU what it was that they were launching. So Jess approached me probably about 2 or 3 months ago and said, "Is there a spot on the schedule for us for
I did
Laravel
see that she got.
to give a talk?"
Yeah, I saw that she got kind of. You just announced her today, or I saw a tweet about it today or something.
Yep.
Jess.
Yep. So Jess is the last of our speaker announcements for
Jess
this
Archer.
year, which I am very very happy about, because I was saying this we have like a chat for all the speakers, and I was saying yesterday that like it's the best and worst part of running the conference is like keeping the secret and then sharing the secret, but then it's also knowing who you've told what and who you can tell what at different times until it's all kind of public. So I do not know what Laravel team is working on, what they're going to be presenting. I just know that it has been told to me that it is the most ambitious project that the Laravel team have undertaken to date. So if you want to know,
doing it and they're announcing it at Laracon AU. Awesome.
and yeah, and I'm very
cool.
appreciative of that, to have the opportunity to have the team to present it, and to back-to-back years have a Laravel product launch at Laracon AU is pretty special for us from our humble beginnings. And so
That's pretty cool.
yeah.
Yeah,
Very much
I've
looking
got
forward to
some
that. So,
ideas
yeah,
now.
Jess-
now that
Jess
I
will be
now that I
there.
kind of know that's what it is, I've got some
Yeah.
ideas.
So we
cool.
put out the emoji teaser yesterday, which was fun because I gave the speakers a bit of a tease. They're like, "Oh, you really want to see what the announcement is tomorrow for yesterday's?" And they're all like,
Yeah.
and they're ready for it. And then they saw, they're like, "What the hell is this?" I'm like, "I told you it was going to be good. I didn't tell you it was going to be a person. I told you it was going to be good." So
That's funny.
what? So yeah, it's we've got a bit of stuff going on. The speakers obviously preparing their talks. We're 4 months out now from Laracon AU. We're doing the intro videos again that we did last year, which were a lot of fun, and I'm very appreciative of all of our speakers this year, because they're humoring me with what we're going to do with the announcement videos this year. So I very much appreciate them, and I can't wait to thank them in person in November. It's going to be good. Still more secrets to come. Like I'm not done, but the speakers
Got lots more up your sleeve. Yeah.
Always keeping secrets on my sleeve. So I'm very happy about that. To have that all out, we'll probably let it simmer for a week or two. We'll publish all of the talk titles at the beginning of August. So everyone will be able to start playing the game of which speaker is going to give which talk, and then probably probably around the same time we'll start putting out the speaker announcement videos as well. So we'll be drawing the line between speaker and topic pretty quickly this year. But yeah, we're tracking well for early bird. That runs until the end of August. So if you haven't got a ticket, I don't know necessarily that all of those tickets will last to the end of August, but once they're gone this year. So
yeah.
get in if you're
All
waiting.
the design looks, all the design is looking really good. The speaker slides or the speaker announcements are all looking great. Love the design.
Yeah,
Everything looks awesome.
I love, I used to work with Nucleus, and they've just knocked it out of the park again for us this year.
Yeah,
really grateful to those.
That makes
guys.
a big difference. You know what I mean? It really, that layer of polish, like, just really makes it so much more professional. And like, people take it seriously when it looks good. As silly as that sounds, but it's true.
Yeah, I've said before that we have to kind of put in a little bit of effort because we're not the flagship. Like, we are an official Laracon, of course, but we're not a flagship size or that kind of event. So we put in a little bit more effort to like make it known that we're not mucking around here. So
absolutely,
but it's good.
Absolutely.
Good fun.
That's exciting, man. Good, all that hard work coming together.
Yeah. Certainly coming up on fast. Certainly coming up on us quickly now as well. Thinking about it, going, oh, it's only 4 months away.
Yeah.
We're going to have to start thinking about different things, and speakers have been booking flights, and we've locked away all the accommodation for everyone, and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, just excited to keep the ball rolling, and the closer we get to Laracon, the closer we get to warm weather as well, which I'm not a fan of at the moment.
Yeah, exactly, dude. So last week on the 17th, I think, would have been a year ago that I arrived at Laracon US ready to go for my talk, but I believe that was like a Sunday or a Monday that I got in. Yeah, maybe Monday. In any case, I didn't speak until a couple days later, but man, it was like, ooh, boy, I think it was a good choice to not speak this year. It's been a very, 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 very busy year, and it would have been very difficult to fit in the time to put a talk together. And so glad I didn't morning it, however, just because it's like, oh man, it would have been so fun to be able to do that. So it's going to stink not being like at the speaker dinner and not being able to like, basically have that VIP pass, which is so fun. But we'll see. Maybe next year. I don't know. The thing is, it's not like it's a guarantee. You know what I mean? Like, you put your talk thing in, and like, hopefully Taylor likes it, and hopefully he doesn't have a million other amazing submissions from other people who are really well known and really great speakers. And it's like, I just happened to get on the list last year. I'm not sure. I don't know. It just worked out that way. But there's no guarantee that just because I'm putting a talk in next year that I'm going to actually get on the list. So we will see.
Yeah,
but looking forward to Laracon coming up. Yeah.
We had like 140 submissions, and like even 140 getting that down to the 17 that we have at the conference is like hard enough. I can imagine for like Europe and for US, the volume of submissions that they get combing through and putting together like a really good comprehensive, covering all the topics and things like, and it's always a balancing act between, who is the audience, who wants to see what, where are the levels at, how do you balance like the professional development talks with the technical talks, how technical do you want those talks to be, and things like that, and it's difficult as well from an abstract to tell all of that kind of stuff. So
yeah, that's the other thing, is like, you got to do a really good job writing that abstract to get the person who's looking through those excited. So it's like, yeah, I'm sure as you looked through like 140, I'm sure some of those abstracts really stood out, and then others were like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm wondering,
like, getting it down, it's like you cut it in half. There's the obvious one. So we have like a limited budget for the speakers, so we can cut out a whole bunch of people that we want to get to speak, but we try and get first timers more from local,
close to home, right.
Or like first timers that are otherwise prominent. Joe Tannenbaum speaking this year, prominent member of the community on the Laravel team as well. So, there are certain things that kind of move you up and down the ranks, but we as much as we would love to have 50-50, we do also need to be mindful that we're trying to focus on our local community as well. And so where we try and draw the majority of our speakers is from that local pool, that local community. We try and bring new speakers along for the ride and help them out as much as possible. And so getting it from 140 to sort of 50 or 60 is pretty easy, realistically. But that last, 50, 60 down to 30, down to,
Yeah.
agonizing up
17,
to,
yeah.
an hour before I'm sending out the invitations to those 17. It's
Yeah, and hoping that they're all still able to do it and all that stuff. Yeah, exactly.
yeah. It's definitely my least favorite part is is cutting that list down to 17 and then like hoping that the 17 that you pick are the ones. So
it's something I don't think about much, honestly.
I think I've had a good track record over the last 3 events, but yeah, I think this year's going to be really good.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Hmm.
Well, yeah. So Laracon is coming up for US pretty quick here.
August
well,
is end of next month as well. What, 4 weeks away?
Yep.
Month away?
Yep. So we got to make sure I got everything squared away for that, and excited to kind of go get down there and see everybody, say hi, catch up with everyone. In the meantime, though, we've got some fun challenges we're working on here at work. The most recent one that we've been working on is Twilio Conversations. Mm-hmm. So this is like two-way chat between, our users and our internal team members. And so the cool thing about Twilio Conversations is there's like multiple channels that you can use to kick off a conversation. So you can do like Facebook Messenger, you can do WhatsApp, you can do SMS, right? And so they have a mechanism by which you can set up a number, right? And then you can say, if anybody texts this number, automatically set up a conversation. But we would really like to use our short code in order to do that. So I'm not sure what you guys have in Australia. If you guys have, so for us, we have, +1 is our international code. And then we have a 10-digit code after that. So it's like a 10-digit long code. We call it 10DLC, 10-digit long code. Okay. And those 10-digit long codes are typically used for person-to-person, P2P, right? And so if you're trying to use a 10-digit long code for the purpose of engaging a user, like as a company, it's very frowned upon. It's pretty much seen as spam almost always.
Okay. Right.
Unless you register a campaign with that 10DLC. So it's a bunch of red tape, all that stuff. However, we also have short codes, which short codes are like five digit numbers. And they are sort of like, they're seen as very trustworthy because they're difficult to get. And so years ago, we were able to secure a short code. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to use conversations with our short code. Mm-hmm. However, the challenge is we've been using Twilio messaging with that short code for forever, which is just those API calls that you use to make a message, to send an SMS to somebody. Yeah. So now what we have to do is we sort of have to integrate this conversation piece alongside of our messaging piece. And so we've been able to do that. What you have to do right now is you can manually set up a new conversation. So for example, if somebody hits a dead end, if they text us at our number and we have like an autoresponder or some sort of chat bot that's listening for these special keywords, if they hit a dead end, we can say, you can either call us or type in agent. And then they type in agent that will kick off a conversation. So was just able to get this working today, but the trick now is I have to be able to distinguish between phone numbers that have started a conversation with us and phone numbers that have not started a conversation with us. And then I also have to manage the life cycle of that conversation so I know when it's begun or when it's ended or when it's been archived or whatever, so that I can kick them back to the old way of doing it. So essentially what I have to do is I have to put an interrupt at the very front of this webhook that I'm receiving, which is like any incoming text to this phone number gets this webhook call. But the conversation endpoint, there's a new webhook conversation endpoint. And now what's happening is both of those webhooks are getting that call at the same time. And so I now have to sort of like massage this and figure out how exactly that's going to work, which doesn't seem too terribly difficult when you just think to yourself like, oh, I just created a database record. And that's all true. But now what you have to do is you basically have to keep the Twilio conversations in sync with your local representation of those conversations. Or you otherwise have to query out to their API every time you receive an incoming text message and to say, am I in a conversation with this phone number right now? And if I am, don't respond on this messaging webhook over here. Only respond on the conversation webhook over here. So that's one challenge I'm facing, but then there's a whole host of other ones. And there are pre-built solutions for this stuff, right? That's the thing is like there are a million solutions out there that allow you to do, two-way messaging and things like that. But the problem is in order to use those, if you want to use some sort of like SMS thing, you have to port your shortcode over to them. And so we can't really do that. So we kind of have to home roll this thing.
Yeah.
What that means is all the things like who is the person assigned to this chat? If they haven't responded in a certain amount of time and the person is still trying to talk with somebody, how do I, escalate it or roll it over to a manager so that somebody can see it? How long do you wait before a conversation is seen as not active anymore? How long do you wait before you close a conversation? If you close a conversation and they reopen it, do you show the chat history or don't you? All these sorts of things. If we did do messaging outside of the conversation, like if we previously sent them an automated message through an API, should we show that in the conversation view? And how do we do that? Right? There's all these new complicated problems that we're trying to solve. But today was just really exciting because was able to finally get a conversation started with our shortcode, which was back and forth with Twilio sending tickets, with their support team. And you never really know what you're going to get or which agent you're going to get on the other side. Are they going to be competent? Are they going to be a newbie? And so thankfully,
are they going to stick to the script, or are they actually going to
exactly, exactly. This was the third ticket I've submitted, and this one I got a really smart person. And they were by the third message, they were like, try this. And I was like, boom, nailed it. Got it. It was it. That was all I needed to do. And so, anyway, that's what we're working on right now. Really exciting, but also lots and lots of problems to solve, which I love. I love solving those problems. It's fun. But it's just got to spend a lot of time thinking through and discussing those things and making decisions about that stuff because when you're building it on your own, you gotta think through all those things, all the things that the other companies who have built it with a team of engineers of 50. I got to do it with a team of 5. So it's fun.
Yeah, I've been working through amortization schedule like calculator for the last week or so, which you would think is fairly straightforward, but there's like 10 or so like explicit inputs into this calculator. And then from those 10 explicit inputs, you then have all of these derived inputs for things like brokerage can be either a percentage or a dollar amount, or balloon payment could be a percentage or a dollar amount. And then based on, whether it is percentage or dollar amount, you have to then calculate the other value. So if you say, this is $10,000. We have to figure out what $10,000 is as a percentage of the amount being funded, and vice versa. So there's just all of this kind of stuff, and it looks very simple when you look at the spreadsheet that has been given to you. That you're like taking the spreadsheet and turning it into a web thing. It's like, it is simple there because you can just like click around and do all this stuff. Whereas in code, you've got to think, okay, which things need to go in which order. Some things have to exist before. Because there's these dependent inputs and things like that. You have to figure out what is an input and what is a derived input. You have to then, and the thing that's been really getting me tripped up is, okay, we've got the front end, which has a whole bunch of fields. The front end then comes in as a form request. The form request then gets converted into a DTO, which is the input DTO. And then you figure out, okay, how much of this is just like static values? How much then gets passed into the actual calculator to then calculate different bits and pieces? And then the results of the calculator get spat out as another DTO that is output,
another DTO,
which then gets sent back. Because we did this once before where like the form request kind of went into the DTO, and then the input kind of became the calculator, which also kind of became the output. And it makes it a little bit finicky to test, to, separate all the different bits and pieces and things like that. So we're trying really, really hard to like figure out where we draw the lines. So I haven't even touched the output yet while I'm trying to figure out the calculations. And then it's like, this is a 5-year term. Well, how many periods are in there? Well, the periods change. Is it a weekly payment? Is it a fortnightly, a 2-weekly payment, a monthly payment, a quarterly payment, a half-yearly payment, a yearly payment? So then you got to figure out the periods, and then the date math is funky. PHP has date period and date intervals. Yeah. So you can kind of say like, how many date intervals do I have in a date period? So in this 5-year period, go and figure out all of the intervals within that. and then
Sure.
kind of working with all of this and then looping through that to then figure out, okay, what is the actual calculation to figure out the payment amounts at each step. And then looking at, the spreadsheet, I type the formula into row 1 and then I click, the little magic handle and I dragged it down. And
Drag
so
it all
it
the way
just
down,
increments everything by 1. So you go, A1, B1, C1, D1,
Right,
all the
right,
way
right.
down to wherever. And it's like, all right, that works in the spreadsheet. How do I turn this into a formula that I can iterate over in this calculator? So, and we've got a fairly tight deadline on it. So it's part of me wants to do it properly so we don't get ourselves in trouble with it later. And part of me goes, there is serious time constraints here that we've got to get this out the door. So
did you see that tweet the other day? Somebody said basically didn't realize they needed to remember math in order to know how to do programming.
Yeah, I did see that tweet,
I'm sitting here relearning math. And then he said, do you need to know math in order to do programming? And then the next tweet, he said, no, you don't. And I'm like, you kind of do. You kind of do.
To some extent.
You don't have to know everything, but you have to have a basic understanding of how these things work. I remember at one point, I asked somebody who was new on my team to do an average. And they were like, okay. And then they went away and did the thing. And I'm like, are you done with that average thing? And they were like, well, I'm working on it. And I'm thinking how long does it take to do an average? I mean, what are we doing here? And then went in and realized they don't know what an average is. They don't know the formula to find average. Now, if you just go in an Excel sheet and say equals average and you sum a column and do the thing, then it's fine, yeah. But they didn't know how to do an average. And I'm like, okay, there is this basic level of understanding that you kind of have to know in order to be able to operate in this. You need to know percentage means you move the decimal over 2 if you're, and that's that's what you have. And so if you don't know that, you're missing a big piece of how this works. And so you have to know some stuff. You don't know everything, but man, the more you know, the more helpful
there is a level. The stuff that the stuff that I was looking at for this amortization stuff, there are some I was looking at the calculations and I was like, that is a level of math I never thought I would see outside of structured learning. And I was like, I'm sure someone has written a library that does this for me. And there was a library that does
thank
it for
God.
me. But it's,
thank God.
There's the percentage thing is true. As humans, we look at percentage and we say 5.25. And in a spreadsheet, if you put 5.25%, Excel, Google Sheets, whatever, knows that how to operate with that. When you're doing that in PHP and you want to calculate 5.25% of 100,
correct.
It's not 100 times 5.25%. It's
100
times 0.0525.
Exactly.
And I'm looking at this going, why am I off by... Oh, yeah, okay. So then you have to decide, all right, at what point do I divide by 100? Do I take the user input of 5.25 and immediately convert it to 0.0525?
No.
But at some point, I'm going to have to present that back to the user as 5.25. So I do I leave it as 5.25, divide by 100 when I need to do operations with it, so that I don't have to remember, okay, I need to return this as 5.25 at the end, and so you've got to make all these decisions and you've got to keep this all in your head and you've got to make sure that you do it all at the right time. So this is where testing is very good, because you write all the tests first. You say, okay, given these inputs, these are the outputs that I expect. If I want to see 5.25 at the start and I want to see 5.25 at the end, I know that somewhere in the middle there, I'm going to have to divide by 100 to make sure that I get the correct value in there. Otherwise, you're going to be off by a factor of 100, and you
have to know enough. You have to know enough to be able to have these things pass the smell test. Do you know what I mean when I say that? You look at that number and you're like, that's not right. Yeah. That's not the right number. And if you don't know enough math to know that, then you can get yourself into pretty big trouble pretty fast.
And, juggling with scale as well. So fortunately I have, our product team was here is the spreadsheet that we need to, so I can look at that and so these are all the inputs, and I know, okay, when I write my tests, given this set of inputs, these are the outputs.
This is an Excel sheet they've been using for 5 years. They know this input, this is the output. So I need to write a test that does that, and make sure it matches, and then go from there. Yeah.
And I said to the product team, I'm like, I don't know if what you have given me is correct. What I do know,
mine does what yours did. Yeah.
what I do know is that what I give you is going to produce the same results as what you have
As
given
what you
me.
gave me.
And
Yeah,
so,
that's
you know,
funny.
and then we're using the brick math library. So we've got things like
Okay, sure.
irrationals and big decimals and all. So it handles like rounding, but there are like certain situations where you can specify, you know, if you do need to round up or round down or round halves up or down and things like that. And there are other
Yeah,
situations where if it cannot round it without losing precision, it will just throw an exception and there is nothing you can do about it.
correct. Yep.
It's like,
And I
okay,
mean,
great.
that's the thing. Like, the more times you lose precision, by the time you get 3 steps later, you're way off, way off. And
Yeah.
like with these
Yeah.
things, you got to be penny perfect. I mean, you cannot
Yeah.
be off when you're talking about banking stuff. Because, like
Yeah.
you said, at scale, you slide it from $100 to $1,000,000, and now your mistake that was off by $1 is now off by a lot more than that. And
Yeah.
so you got to be exactly perfect. And it
Yeah.
is. I mean, this is why you always store money in the smallest amount that you can, right? So cents, right? Lessons learned the hard way. If you can't store it in cents, you're in for a world of hurt because you're going to have to start rounding cents in order to get there, and it's just not going to work well. And so it is a difficult beast to tame, and one that I think everybody should have to do at some point in their lives. In their programming journey, dealing with percents and dealing with money. It's a fun one.
And unfortunately, dealing with money in typical financial systems, but especially in, you know, US and Australia, we're dealing in up to 2 decimal places of precision. So
Right.
if you're doing all of your work, the stuff we're doing is like 5 or 6 decimal places, and that's just because that was what the spreadsheet was set to. So that's what we've decided. We'll work in 5 or 6. So that way your loss of precision and your rounding errors are
It's
insignificant.
way out there. Yeah.
It's 5 or 6 decimal places down. You don't have to worry about it because you're just going to chomp at
Chuck,
2 decimal
at
places
the
and call
end.
it a day.
At the very last second. It's like at the very
Yeah.
last second,
Yeah.
that's when we can actually do it. But like up to that point, you can't. You can't
Yep.
lose anything. You got to keep it all there.
Yep.
Yep. And so good stuff to remember. And then, I wanted to talk about one other thing, which is it's not super related, but I guess maybe a little bit. Which is that when you're upgrading from Laravel 10 to Laravel 11, it's also upgrading from Carbon 2 to Carbon 3.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the one other thing I was going to say, which is like, you know, when you're dealing with money and precision and floats and things like that, you got to be careful. And then when you're dealing with like sub month, add month, and you know you have more than 28 days in a month, and you do sub month, and it like skips a weird month, the overflow stuff, all that. You got to be really careful with that when you're dealing with those. And then this one other thing bit me recently, which is upgrading from Carbon 2 to Carbon 3, or actually Laravel 10 to Laravel 11. I should go look at the upgrade notes and see if it says anything about this. But one of the functions that we use in Carbon all the time is diff in, and then there's a million other things, you know, different seconds, different minutes, different hours, different time, you know, different weeks, different years, different anything like that. So what has happened is it used to give you an integer value always. So if I said now add days 6, and then said diff in time, or sorry, diff in days now, it would give me 6 or whatever, right? Whatever it is. However, if there was if the hours did not add up to exactly 6 24-hour periods, it would just give you 5. Well, now it actually gives you a float, not an integer. It gives you like 5 dot whatever. And if the time is not, it's not giving you a absolute value of the difference in time. It's giving you the negative or positive version. Did you go backwards or did you go forwards? And so it's no longer just 5 now. It's negative 5.2, right?
Yeah.
And so really goofy. And so if you're using that stuff, you have to intentionally make sure your code base is specifying cast this to an integer, which will take care of the negative and will take care of rounding it, not a problem. Or you can pass as a second argument, you pass true, which will take out, it'll give you the absolute value version of it, but then you still have to take care of the integer portion of it. So it may be a positive that it's got more precision. It may be a negative, but what I will tell you is that if your tests
it will break your application.
if your tests are not being careful about how that's being handled, you will end up with some pain. And that's exactly what happened to us. And we were dealing with payment stuff. And so Thankfully, it was just how often a type of payment was recurring. And it wasn't actually setting how often it was recurring. It was just basically trying to determine how often it was recurring based on the dates of the payments. So we didn't screw up anybody's stuff, but it was like the displays were weird because we were diffing in days and then it was not working the same as it used to. So just something to be aware of, upgrading from 10 to 11 or just from Carbon 2 to Carbon 3. Watch out for that one because it'll bite you.
Yeah, it is definitely in the upgrade guide. It says that Laravel 11 supports both Carbon 2 and Carbon 3, and then it talks about the differences with the diff-in methods, that they now return floating point numbers and may return negative values to indicate time direction, which is a significant change. So the framework itself will support both. So if it's a big enough breaking change for you to upgrade to Carbon 3 and you can't go through and realistically update all of your usage to account for the floats and the directional time values, then you can just use Carbon 2 and everything will just keep working as it is. If it's like a few things here and there, then go ahead and upgrade. Keeping up to date is generally the preferred mode of operation for Laravel. So yeah,
I think I need to reach out to Jason McCurry on this one, Mr. JMac, because I think this is I should have looked at the upgrade guide. I can't blame him because like he did all the work for me to get the shift to 11. But I think I typically just sort of think like, well, if there's anything worth knowing, he's going to let me know. Exactly. And he probably has updated it by now. But I didn't see it in there in the upgrade guide. I should have looked there first. But that's what bit me. And so anyway, we're going back through our applications now, anything that we upgraded to 11 and being like, hey, go look for anything that says diff in and then go check to see if it's working correctly, because I want to make sure there wasn't a bunch of other stuff that we missed along the way that was causing us some issues. So anyway,
my last thing before we wrap up here, the pipeline has now finished running on a branch that I opened, or a PR that I opened back in February. We just haven't really had time to get around to it. But this is to upgrade dependencies to support PHP 8.3 in our application. So that's all shipped. We've been running 8.3 in production. We've been running 8.3 in our new like containerized production environment for about a month. Even though we've been running like 8.2 dependencies. So now that that's available, we're just going to merge that, send it to production, and then the next thing to do will be the Laravel 11 upgrade, which should be mostly straightforward. I did it back when it was like a beta shift and worked through some things with JMac, but it should be good to go now.
There has been, so I think maybe I shifted too soon. I say that, I don't know. Like when we were first talking about it on Laravel News and all that stuff, all the hotness was like slim your application files, like delete all the configs, like condense everything into this one bootstrap app.php. I don't know if that's the recommendation anymore. Honestly, I don't think they're slimming configs. I don't think they're necessarily doing all the removing of the service providers. I'm not sure. At least when I've done a Laravel new, I think for 11, it's got all the config files in there. They're all still there. And it's like, okay, it's interesting. So I think there's been a little bit of a change course on that one. I think
there was some back and forth on that one,
Yeah, there was. And so I went all in. I'm like, dude, let's freaking slim this thing down to nothing.
Yeah, let's do it.
And we did. I mean, we took all the config files are gone. Almost all the app service providers are gone, or all of our service providers were gone. We slimmed everything into that bootstrap/app.php. It's fine. It's just much different. And
it's much different. And when you've got 10 years under your belt, since the version 5 days of the, this is where everything is, this is where providers are, this is how to manipulate things, this is where to change things. When you then get to this point of 10 years of doing it like that, and like, I don't think it's good or bad necessarily because I haven't used it one way or another, but I think the fact that it is drastically different means that you actually need to go and think, okay, how do I do this? And it's not.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's good or bad. It's just that you haven't learned how to do it in this new way yet. And so you do have to think about what you're doing a little bit more to figure out where is the appropriate place to do this.
For sure. Yeah. For sure. Like when you're like, hey, I need to register a new like routes thing. Like we're not in the route service provider anymore.
Yeah. Nope.
You don't do that there. Like, I need to modify a global middleware. Well, you don't go to the HTTP kernel anymore. It's not there. You know what I mean? So it's like you just got to know. It is a little bit of like moving around. It's not too bad now. Now that I've done it we've probably got like eight apps running in Laravel 11. It's not too bad. I typically can find exactly what I need, but there is sort of just like I guess the other thing too is like sometimes the documentation on it is a little bit like they haven't decided either. Sometimes it assumes you have it the new way. I think most of the time it does, but I don't know. When you're looking, that's the other thing. When you're looking at the old documentation, like for 10 or something like that, you know, it's like, oh yeah, it doesn't work like that anymore. All the tutorials are out of date for like, hey, here's how you added the middleware. It's not there anymore. So that sort of sucks. Whatever. I'll get over it. But
it'll be fine. Don't even worry about
it. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. All right.
All right.
What episode? 159, is that right?
Yeah, it is.
Thanks, folks, for hanging out with us. 159. Show notes at northmeetsouth.audio/159. Hit us up on Twitter at JacobBen, at Michael Duenda, or at NorthSouthAudio. And if you like the show, rate it up in your podcatcher of choice. 5 stars would be incredible, amazing, awesome, and wonderful. If you're going to be at Laracon US, I will see you there in a few weeks. And if you're going to Laracon AU, start buying your warm summer clothes because it's going to be hot. Make sure you pack a large cup so that you can fill up your soda with American-sized sodas. And if you don't have tickets, you should certainly buy some. All right, folks. Until next time, we'll see you.
Bye, everyone.